Ding 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 da ding ding da ding 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 da ding ding da ding 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 da ding ding da ding ding ding.
Fubble time.
I was like, "Hi, what are you doing?" You just did this like little.
I shut the door because my doggy's right there. Wait, we got to say our thing.
Hi, I'm Teresa Tomey.
And I'm Patrick Ziegler.
We are
Fubble Entertainment.
And this is
Fubble Time.
All right. I was going to try to figure out, and then we got to talking, and then Brian showed up in the green room, and I didn't finish looking. I was going to see how long we've been doing this, because I realized we might have started this at the beginning of the COVID shutdown when I was wearing long sleeve shirts, and now I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt again. So we have come full circle.
Well, I know that we were doing it when I was in Florida, and now being in Michigan for the summer, but going back to Florida next week. So I think we've been doing it at least since April.
Yeah, that would make sense, because I probably was wearing long sleeves for mid-June. Anyway.
So you.
Let's talk about our guest. I'm so excited because we have been doing this show to bring in artists and creatives to talk about film and entertainment and the creative process. And we talk to people from all walks of life, and we've had people from coast to coast, and we've done some local Grand Rapidians too. And this is a Grand Rapidian who has coast to coast experience, and he's all over the map. So
for our many viewers that don't know what a Grand Rapidian is, why don't you tell them what a Grand Rapidian is?
A person who lives in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
That's right.
And I say Michiganian and not Michigander too. So because okay. So anyway, about Brian, he is based here in Grand Rapids. He is an advertising and editorial photographer. He's a video director. He's a seasoned podcaster. That's right. He's podcasting, folks. He is best known for his heroic style of portraiture. And I'm going to read this directly. That is driven by his desire to connect authentically with each of his subjects. Because if you do see Brian's work, boy, do you get such a sense of the relationship between Brian and the subject, but who the subject, it's really beautiful. He is a natural storyteller. He likes to curate relatable moments and heartfelt experiences. He works within the healthcare, automotive, and furniture industries. He has a wonderful, cozy, and candid multimedia podcast. It's called Full Exposure with Brian Kelly. We're going to talk to him about that a little bit. He's going to tell us what that is. And we are so excited to also hear about his new coffee table book.
Yes.
Ariel, Grand Rapids from Above. We are so excited to learn about his drone piloting and photography. So I'm excited. We've not had a photographer on, so this is really cool. So we are excited. I've said excited like 7 times. I'll stop saying that.
That's okay. You're excited.
I am. Hey, bring him out. Brian Kelly.
Great.
Brian Kelly.
How are you guys?
We're good. Man. So glad to have you. We've got our Shelly Irwin is here, and she says, "Yay!" And our friend Jeannie from Florida, who tunes in all the time. She's so wonderful. But we have Brian Kelly.
We do.
It's good. You guys are a sight for sore eyes, I tell you.
Oh, that's so nice.
Laugh put down early, so I didn't get my full dose of you two.
Yeah, we we interviewed Joanne pretty early on, right after the shutdown and everything, and talked about the whole process, the history, obviously. And speaking of which, that's where we originally got connected. You were part of First Year, right? With Miss Betty White. You took those photos, right?
Yeah, I was very much involved from just maybe before. I remember signing like some NDAs about this thing, and like it was all kind of.
That's right.
And then the smiles came out on the banners all around town, and people were wondering what was happening. And but yeah, so I was in very early, and then that year, Betty White came in, and you guys did so much work for her, and put on just a fantastic program, and. It was a really great portrait session I had with her. That was really quick, but what a joy that was to interact with Betty White. So
talking about your Laugh Fest experience, we're going to go out of order on our questions because we've already dived into Laugh Fest,
which we usually do, which is fun.
We'll be all over the map. It's the ADHD show. how did you get involved in Laugh? Like, did you say, hey, I'm a photographer, I'd love to do this for you? Did they go, hey, you're like, how did you get involved, and how has that relationship helped you? How have you helped them? Like, it's such an interesting relationship that you guys have.
It really has. It's a credit. I was working, so Art Prize started a year or two before Laugh Fest, and I was kind of the official photographer and then a videographer / for Art Prize, and had quite a few responsibilities. And I believe I have to credit David Abbott, who was working at Art Prize at the time, but he was also on like the early board of
Laugh Fest
and steering committee, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I'll get the name wrong, but he was instrumental in just kind of lobbing my name out there to think about photography. And then I was brought in to chat about, hey, what might you want to do around laughter, portraits, and then portraits of top talent. And then it's just been, 10 years of just every year, it's one of my favorite things. And Tracy, you asked about what it's done for my career, and I really can't underscore enough, as a photographer from Grand Rapids, Michigan, to have just delivered to our community these well-known superstars. And I'm the guy who is actually, asked to create these portraits of well-known people. It's had a tremendous impact on my career. It's brought me opportunities that I never would have had if Laugh Fest hadn't existed. And part of that is it's a chicken or egg equation. It's like, it's like you guys, when you're producing scripts or doing things or interacting, you don't get those opportunities. You don't get to shoot high profile people until they see that you have high profile people in your portfolio.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like this. So it definitely has been a door opener, and it's led to just a lot of my work now is really trying to sculpt some really unique portraiture of all kinds of people, from just you mentioned heroic portraiture, but everyone from, it doesn't matter who it is, top CEO or person down to someone who's making everything go and tick within a company, or a worker somewhere. I have the same approach. But Laugh Fest has meant everything in terms of my career growth and trajectory, and given me so many opportunities. And I have so many great stories about all these people over 10 years.
Right. Which we don't have time, but Bill Cosby was year one. So we'll just leave that right there.
It just ended how you might think it would, in that I don't have a portrait of Bill Cosby. So
yeah. Yep.
But you have my gosh, how many? You must have several dozen, right?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
Close to 100, because not just the headliners, I'll shoot any of the talent. Most of the comics that travel in that have any kind of, name brand recognition, could be small, but could be large.
Yeah.
One year we shot Amy Schumer.
We hosted her, actually.
Oh, good. Yeah. She had Inside Amy Schumer, but she hadn't, Rec hadn't come out, her book hadn't come out. And so we caught her, and my portrait caught her just on the cusp of being a global superstar. And she was still accessible at the time, and very nice during our shoot.
And you've had great experience, and there's so much to talk about, but
I know.
But there has been, people are also like, hey, that's a good photograph. Like, the comics recognize that it's not like we're just getting this dude from Grand Rapids to take your picture. Like, we're giving them real quality.
Well, that's kind of it's a challenge at first, when it's easier when comics come back another time, and many of them come back more than once, and several times. So I've established some rapport, and they'll give me a little more time. They're down to do kind of whatever, and I can get sort of creative with them and improv, as they do so well during our photo shoots. But when we first started, I prep for hours before each portrait, and it's really, I might have anywhere from 2 minutes to 10 minutes with the subject. And if you're not ready, you're not ready. And Betty was one of the first high pressure situations I had. Her manager was like, you have 2 minutes, and I'm watching.
Jeff.
Yeah, and he was nice, but it was like it was kind of one of those things. It's first year, and like, what is this photo for? And I have Betty White, who trying to conserve her bandwidth for the big show. So
and that was an amazing time because she was everything you wanted her to be. What everybody's always asked. And Jeff actually, and we've had the same opportunity as you've had, Brian.
Yeah.
We've become friendly with Jeff, so we have an open door with him, and that's huge. In this industry to have. We worked with Betty White. She knows who we are, and he respected us. But you do have to prove yourself at first. It is like you have 2 minutes, and then once they see you working, they're like, okay, I'll give you 20 minutes.
Exactly. And you bring up a good point. Once you have an opportunity and you get, I don't use a lot of sports analogies, but when you are actually at the plate and you're able to get, an opportunity, you want to hit a home run and use all your resources to whatever opportunity you have, because it's just a door opener. And I'm always so fascinated with your guys' collaboration with Fubble and everything that you do, and Teresa in LA so much.
And there's my dogs.
It's who and it's like one relationship leads to another. And it's the same way in corporate photography or advertising photography. There's a lot of similarities in what we do and how we create more opportunity out of maybe a small opportunity. And so I've really enjoyed watching you guys really swing the fence.
Thank you. So more baseball analogy.
I know. Sorry.
That's good. That's good. Just don't make Detroit Tigers baseball. They got beat 19-0
today.
I think it was today.
Oh, they should just
or last night.
They should quit. 19-0.
19-0.
You know what? If the Cubs would have quit, how many times they were 19-0, they would have got the World Series.
Look at us being all sporty.
I know. Teresa calls me sporty gay, like Sporty Spice.
Sporty gay.
Well, because you think, is he? What's he sporty?
Because I like sports.
Because he likes sports.
No stereotyping there, right?
None whatsoever.
So let's ask the first question.
Yeah, go for it.
And we're already kind of like, but we always ask, what inspired you? Did you always know that you wanted to get into photography?
No, I didn't. After high school, I went to Northview High School on the northeast side of Grand Rapids. Did okay in high school, but kind of skipped through, didn't really apply myself. I got, B's mostly. And then I didn't know really what I wanted to do or pursue. And so I went to GRCC for a year, dabbled in college, and then I went to Grand Valley for a year, but I dropped out during that second year. And then I started working professionally for Meyer, and just I needed a break from school. It was not going well, going well in college. So after I worked for Meyer, I moved around for a little bit. I was kind of like a department manager at Meyer.
Oh, you were? Oh, I was thinking you were working in the creative area.
No, not at all.
Oh,
I got into a management training program at Meyer, and I ran 1 hour photo labs. You used to go to the 1 hour photo lab.
Totally.
I love
this.
So I was like the department manager for 1 hour photo at a store out in Muskegon, Norton.
Oh my gosh, that is so not at all how I thought your story.
Me either.
But I love it so much, and I'm going to say from 1 hour photo to one of our guests, Hillary, who was our guest last week, said fantastic portrait. So she must have been on your site.
Thank you, Hillary. Thanks.
She's a humorist, writer. She's really fantastic. Maybe you'll shoot her for her book cover someday.
Oh,
I like that.
We'll make that work. But anyway, I did not expect the 1 hour photo. I love it so much.
But you weren't in the photo hut or what? Remember those things?
The parking lot ones?
The parking lot. I always felt
photo. Remember
was
that?
That what it was?
The drive-through. Yeah, there was a Fox photo. My mom used to bring her cartridge film there.
Totally.
So
you remember the disc, the little disc?
Yes, the disc. How teeny was that little negative? It was so tiny.
Oh my God.
But and then I moved down to Ohio with Meyer. I got I don't know if it's a promotion, but they were opening a bunch of stores down in Ohio, and I was living in Dayton, and then I was becoming 23 23, 24, and I was just like, I don't want to work in a Meijer store the rest of my life. I mean, as far as what I was doing. So I moved back to, I was down in Ohio for about 3 years. I moved back to Grand Rapids. I'm 24, 25. Had dabbled in college for 2 years. I thought I'll just knock out an associate's and then figure out what I'm going to do. So I went back to GRCC, and I had an elective to take, and I took Intro to Photography.
Oh my God.
And Dennis Grants, you may know him, a well-known educator in town. He was my first teacher, and then a professor of photography, and then Jonathan Russell, who ran the department, photo department at GRCC. But I still ended up not really getting a degree. I took 3 or 4 photo classes, and then I just started working. I was off to the races, like a lot of people that go to more of a trade school, I suppose.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that is such a wonderful journey that you've taken.
Yeah, maybe you want to option my story. I don't know.
Well, I love the idea of working at a photo mat, or the 1 hour photo, and become
Robin Williams did one photographer. 1 hour photo, I think that was.
Oh, really?
Dark film. I think it was called 1 hour photo.
Oh my gosh. So,
yes,
you want to ask the next question?
Go for it.
Okay, so you do have such a creative career, and job at one point. Where do you make ends meet, so to speak? Because we were talking a little bit about that, especially during this whole period of what's going on in life.
Well, but you've got such a diverse portfolio. It's not just. So how do you go from the photomat, from your photography class, to this website that has not even enough places to click on because there's so many different.
And you do production too as well.
Video production and motion work. Yeah. Well, I'd equate it to I'll bring it to your world, the classic triple threat. You have to sing, dance, and act. And if you really, especially in West Michigan, if you want to stay busy, truly busy as a photographer or a videographer or whatever, you have to develop multiple talent, but you can't do everything well. Right. But I tried a lot of things the first few years. I was shooting the city in black and white, and I had an art gallery, and I was also doing some architectural work, which I still do architectural work. And so I kind of had always one foot in the arts and another foot in kind of the commercial. What I mean by commercial world is like people hiring you to do a specific thing. And I never did like wedding photography or family photography or portraits. That was like another genre that I wasn't as interested in. But it just kind of grew year after year, and I would develop more skills. And when you can photograph a building kind of formally for an architect, there's a very technical approach to documenting architecture. People just assumed you could do portraiture. It's like, hey, and this was all pre-digital, it was like all on film. And so there was still some magic to photography in terms of like, if you could do one skill set really well, they just assumed you could do anything.
Right.
And so, that's good and bad, because I had definitely some bad outcomes with certain jobs and with portraits, and I avoided portraiture for a long time. And now it's ironically, probably one of the best, it's what keeps me the busiest. And then, then technology changed. Digital brought up a lot of my confidence in shooting people. I had the immediate analysis of my lighting and how the person looked on camera. And then from there, what evolved into video is they packed HD camera capability, video capability onto a DSLR camera. And I was like, well, I guess I can shoot 24 frames a second now versus just a single frame. And maybe I can, I think of photography as part of storytelling and brand storytelling. And my job is to communicate through a single frame via photography or through video. We're telling it through minutes and minutes, or 10 to 12 minute pieces. So that's how it's grew. It's kind of like that old, I remember one time, bringing it back to Meyer, Fred Meyer came and talked to our store one time, and he was like, somebody asked him, how did you build Meyer? How did you do
Oh, wow.
And he was eating a chocolate chip cookie. And he was
of course.
He was eating his mouth was open and food in his mouth. It's like, it's kind of like eating an elephant, one bite at a time. And that's kind of how my career has been. I've been around over 20 years now, and it's, but that's the same.
Said the billionaire in the room.
Yeah, and it ain't me. I was not the billionaire in the room.
I was gonna say, and you've been doing it for 20 years, so now you're a billionaire.
Now I am. I'm some percentage of decimal point of a million. Very successful.
Do you have with all of these? I mean, building this, like you said, you learned that some of it was better than some of your talents were better than others. I'm so curious about the bad portraiture.
Yeah. Oh, I talk about it a lot.
I want to know what that is.
Well, early on, I was not very technical. Now, if you see me do a portrait shoot, there's a lot of lights. There might be one or two assistants. We're tethered to a computer. There's a hair and makeup artist. There might be a wardrobe consultant. It depends on the level. And other times it's just me and the subject. I'm not saying that all my work has to have a big crew. But when I first started out, I was just kind of nervous and sweaty. And I think the subject was a bit suspicious of does this guy know what he's doing or not? And then I had some instances like we're wearing glasses, all of us. But if you didn't, if you were using a strobe with an umbrella, many times, and this was film days, and I wasn't Polaroiding correctly, test shots, and I would get the film back and you couldn't even see their eye because it was just a reflection of the umbrella. So that's a huge faux pas. You have to hide those things. Use the light and shape light and just over the years. So that was my phobia about shooting portraiture, is I would get my film back. Or maybe you didn't anticipate this person's a blinker. My wife at the time, maybe she's listening and she can
I think Teresa.
She's a blinker. She just, it's a skill. I don't know how she does it, but most of the photos I take of her, she just anticipates the shutter.
Wow.
So those types of things. So that's what would happen is hey, I shot 24 photos of you on this roll of 24, and you blinked in 18, and the 5 other ones that were good, I can see the strobe, and then I'd have to ask them to come back.
Oh, wow.
Just wasting time, and I was eating the cost of the extra stuff, and and it was just embarrassing.
And now it's yay. Speaking of blinking, I believe somebody special has joined us, Kathleen.
Oh,
okay.
Yay.
So then you go from being this disaster,
yeah, no joke.
I love that.
to it being part of the largest part of your portfolio. I mean, what in you as a human being got you to that place?
Wow, Teresa, that's a great question. I didn't, honestly, this may sound funny, but it's really true. I didn't have another option. I didn't have another out. I don't know what else to do with my life. I love photography, even in the times that I was doing horribly at it, technically, and not executing perfect shoots. There was something about that just kept me getting back, just kind of getting your ass kicked and then just coming back and go, I'm going to fight through. I know I can do this.
Right.
But it evolved over time to now where, the lighting and all these things that were problematic for me early on are now what are hard to replicate. The technology is in filmmaking and photography is democratized, what's acceptable and what's good, because the bar moved up a lot in any camera. Your iPhone takes amazing portraits now.
Right.
Boom. So, my daughter Faith, hey Dad, she says, hi Faith. She's at home watching with Kathy. So, that's that's where it sort of evolved. But now it's like fortunately I was just ahead of technology where if you want something really kind of different and unique looking and you like how I typically do that, there aren't too many options to go find that. And that's where I'm able to kind of leverage my experience and my seasoning, as you said earlier in the intro, to hopefully create something exceptional and something that you can't,
Yeah, you have a very strong signature, I think. I mean, I think in a lot of your portraiture, it's like, ooh, that's a Brian Kelly. I mean, it's fun. I like that.
I like that too. And that's the goal. I think you have it as a voice, as a writer, in like just the tone of things, and a lot of that comes down to just how you interact. You guys as writers and collaborators really have to understand humanity and people and characters, and these are things that I've developed over time, where you get a sense of who somebody is just in a few seconds, and then you use
good or bad.
For good or bad, and use whatever devices you have to coax and get them to relax and to have something authentic. I'm very rarely ever interested in the showbiz portrait, this, and I really just want to get to something quieter and a little more a sense of that, and that requires establishing trust between myself and whoever I'm photographing, because whether they're famous or not, you're still sort of holding up a camera to them, and it's kind of a confrontational thing, and I try to work through that to hopefully get some type of result that feels unique.
Well, on the Brian Kelly look and feel, tell us about the Grand Rapids aerial photography, and where can people find that, and what tell us the story about how that came about.
That did the drone inspire doing the book, or did you go, I'm going to do the book, I better get a drone?
It's COVID inspired, and my daughter Faith's watching. It was inspired by her and my wife Kathleen, and the situation that arose out of COVID. I've used drones for few years now in video productions. They're great. You need aerial footage, you see drone work and documentary work and cinematography and corporate photography or videography. So I've used drones quite a bit, and but there's a special wrinkle to this story, and I'll try to get through it quickly. Is my daughter Faith has cerebral palsy, and she's 15, and she needed surgery on both of her lower legs, some very complicated surgeries, just to kind of correct some things with how she was walking and some of the stress on her body from the spasticity and stress on her body. So she had a complicated surgery at end of January and part of February, at home on bed rest. And then in March, she was scheduled to go into Mary Free Bed Rehabilitation Hospital to get 6 weeks of inpatient 24/7 care, stay at the hospital and do rehab, because she basically had to work on learn how to walk again and get strong again. And that was about a 6-week period. But 2 days after we checked in, COVID hit and the hospital had to shut down for visitors. So my wife and I had to make a decision, and the decision was that Kathy would stay with Faith 24/7. They were locked on the 3rd floor there. They couldn't even use elevators or anything. They could do therapy and go back to their room.
Wow.
And I stayed home with my college-age girls, Hannah and Maddie. Hannah's almost 21 and Maddie's 19. And I thought, well, I'll just keep working while they're locked away. And then work went away. I couldn't do video productions or photo productions. And I was kind of stressed. I'm not really somebody who's gets depressed. I don't even know necessarily, you can pile up quite a bit of stress on me before I think the wheels come off. But I was out of sorts. I was disconnected from my youngest daughter and my wife, and they're going through this, pretty painful therapy. I can't see them. We can FaceTime. Not the same. I'm home with my daughters, my older daughters. I'm enjoying that time. But I was really looking back now, what really led to the drone flying was just, it was relaxing. And one morning, I looked out the window. It was one of those nights where you just toss and turn all night. And you look at the clock and it's only moved 10 or 15 minutes every time you look at it. And I just happened to look outside, and I caught what was just the faintest of a sunrise coming over the trees from my pillow. And I just, for some reason, my feet hit the floor. I made a pot of coffee, and I just grabbed my drone, and I went in my car, and I just tried to chase the sunrise, you know?
Wow.
But more importantly, what happened, I wasn't thinking about a book. I didn't think about a book for 2 or 3 months. And I just kept flying because the city nourished me. I loved how calm and quiet Grand Rapids was. Just loved flying and looking at it. And then I started to see the city and photograph the city in ways I've never seen before. And as you know, from like scouting and looking at locations and all these other things, for 20 years, that's my job, is to know every part of the city and every possible place we might be able to shoot something. So I know Grand Rapids like the back of my hand. And, but I was discovering all these different secret Grand Rapids from above and looking straight down, and I'd find these abstractions. And then about July, I photographed quite a bit and flew a lot in, especially when it got warmer, April, May, June.
Wow.
And I thought, early July, I'm like, I'm going to do a book, do a coffee table book. And if I do it through Kickstarter, I can pre-sell the book. Because what's the hardest thing about making a book?
Right, making your back.
How many are you going to print? How many people are going to buy this thing? So I did a Kickstarter campaign that just closed last week. And
will you open back up again? Because it was a very successful campaign.
Very successful, yeah. We, almost to almost $30,000 through the Kickstarter. There were some side sales that happened in.
That's so great.
It's just kind of sight unseen and talk about the community. We were talking in the green room, but they really, trusted me that I'm going to put together a beautiful book, and it's going to be amazing. But right now, sales are sort of idled for about another 6 weeks. The book is off to print now, and we're just shepherding through and making sure our Kickstarter supporters are rewarded and get all the things that we promised them. But if I do have a website URL,
yes,
tomorrow there will be a placeholder page there. But if you went right this second, it probably would be like not found.
Well, we'll still put it up.
Yeah, it's ArielGrandRapids.com. So pretty.
How do you spell Ariel? A-R-I-A-L. A-R-I-A-L. ArielGrandRapids.com. And then maybe mid to late October, we'll open it up for sale there. I'm spelling it wrong.
A-E-R-I-A-L. Ariel.
Oh, I did right. Okay.
And then GrandRapids.com.
That I knew. Well, this is great. We have to wrap it up because, like I said, my studio is being used in another 2 minutes. So,
and just like that, though.
I know.
Talk about your podcast. Like the name of it is, and how do we find it?
That's fullexposurepodcast.com. The premise of the podcast is somebody comes to this studio here, right behind me. Mm-hmm. We shoot a portrait. And once the portrait's done, I create a portrait of that guest. And then after the portrait session's done, we sit down and talk about whatever we want. And it was born out of these quick photo sessions, a lot of them with, some well-known people where you just have a 2-5-minute connection. You get chatting and then they had to go. And you're like, see you later.
I know.
So that's
fullexposurepodcast.com.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just released an episode this morning with Dustin Dwyer, who's a Michigan radio.
Oh, yeah. Follow him on the Twitter, I think.
Yes, he's great. And it was great conversation about race and police policies and local stuff.
Oh, great.
It was, we roll up our sleeves on it. We don't really, there's nothing we won't tackle on the podcast. So
good for you.
Brian, you are an amazing creature. You're a I don't know what the word I want to say.
Jack of all trades, a Brian of all trades.
I was going to say you won't, but
Swiss knife. I'm a Swiss Army knife.
You are a Swiss Army knife with sweaters and zipper sweaters. There's just so many things.
You need like scissors. I can do that. Maybe a nail clipper. I don't know. But
you can do everything. You can do it. He does it all.
Well, I'm excited about the book. I can't wait to get the book.
For your analogy, I wrote, he shoots, he pods, he scores.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. I love you guys.
Oh my gosh, it's been great.
And I can't wait till we can, all convene and go to Cottage Bar and hang out.
I know, and collaborate again.
I know.
All right, Brian.
Brian, thank you. Thanks for
joining. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Oh my gosh! And
I know, it's so quick.
It went so quick.
I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta be done.
He's so interesting. Okay, we gotta get out of here.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
We're next week on hiatus because I'm traveling back to Florida.
Next Florida.
Okay.
I'll say it again. I gotta get out of here.
Oh, and